With all the reports, rumors, and even direct quotes from Nick Nurse in recent weeks, there's been a lot of questions about who will be the Toronto Raptors head coach going into next season. And now, we have a list of potential candidates as the odds have been revealed for the Raptors head coaching position for the start of the 2023-2024 NBA season. So we'll break down that list, the odds, as well as Pascal's comments in the entire head coaching situation. So we'll break that down, as well as Fred VanVleet defending himself against a lot of Raptors fans, calling himself a top 50 player. And I know that's fired a lot of people up with Raptors Twitter and all that. So we'll discuss his comments, and a Toronto Raptor, a former Toronto Raptor this season, ended up signing with the Boston Celtics. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is Ime Udoka, named as a favorite to replace Nick Nurse in terms of the head coaching spot for the Toronto Raptors next season. Now, this is very interesting because anyone that's been watching, I'm assuming if you're watching the channel, you probably heard that there's been a lot of rumors going on about Nick Nurse leaving this summer, right? The rumors were popping up with Ime potentially being a candidate. Those felt like they came out of nowhere. And then Nick Nurse added fuel to the fire, essentially saying this summer he's going to take a lot of time to reflect. He's been with the Raptors organization for 10 years. He's going to figure out what he's going to do with his future. Kind of unprovoked at a very strange time, a very strange moment in the season. And a lot of the Raptors beat reporters, Grange, Lewinberg, and all that said, okay, this situation might be a little bit worse than, the front office realized if Nick Nurse is making these types of comments. So that has added some concern, right? And the Ime Udoka rumors has popped up, and now the Vegas betting odds, Bodog.com, essentially came out and given us a list in terms of potential candidates. As obviously the Vegas bookies, they never want to lose in terms of making their odds, so they usually have a little bit more privy to information than most of the public, and their list is fairly interesting, as Nick Nurse, obviously, is the favorite to be the head coach next season, but not favored it nearly as much as I would have expected. You know, if I'm betting money or whatever the heck I'm doing, right, this isn't sponsored or nothing or anything that's going on, there's that, like, I'm shocked that Nick Nurse is a plus 155 right now to be the Raptors head coach next season. I mean, sure, the team does seem to have tuned him out a little bit. They've not lived up to the actual expectations. There's a lot of people across the fan base that aren't happy with Nick Nurse overplaying players, guys getting injured and, running different schemes on defense, not adjusting for the younger, less experienced team that he currently has. I get all that. But those odds, forget Ime Udoka right now. Those odds are fairly interesting for a guy that's won a championship. One coach of the year that championship season, had a remarkable coaching performance just last year, exceeding all of the expectations most Raptors fans had, except for mine. I thought we were going to be a top 4 seed, but making the 5th seed last season was a remarkable coaching performance. Sure, he had to run through guys like crazy in terms of giving them insane amount of minutes every single night, but just 1 season removed from that, 1 year removed from that, I think that the Raptors, it's going to be Nick Nurse's decision if he's going to leave. So maybe the bookies have more insight into that front. I mean, Masai Ujiri is praising him as the top coach in the NBA just last offseason. So I'd be shocked. I'm still shocked that the odds are sort of this level, but if there is a guy that I'd be more comfortable replacing Nick Nurse, just given his whole track record, is Ime Udoka. And that's what this odds list sort of indicates, as very close in terms of being the head coach of the Raptors next season. Close in odds, it's Ime Udoka at a plus 175, just a little bit below Nick Nurse in terms of probability that he'll actually be the coach for the next season. And Ime Udoka, obviously suspended from the Boston Celtics this entire year, did take that team to an NBA championship, and sort of did with the Boston Celtics probably what the Toronto Raptors would be hoping he would do with this Raptors team if he were to be brought in as head coach, because Brad Stevens was there for a very long time in Boston. It seemed like, he was very well respected across the league. There was a point where Bill Simmons was going out there and saying he's the most valuable asset in the entire NBA, and then it felt like the Celtics locker room sort of tuned him out, and then he got promoted to the management role and all that sort of stuff. And Ime Udoka seemed to bring back the vibes, obviously stayed at a strong level in terms of coaching, game planning, increase their defensive and, schemes and all that to another level. Their defense was top tier last season and brought them to the NBA Finals, something Brad Stevens couldn't do with that Celtics team. So if Nick Nurse is getting fired, if he's getting canned, and the Raptors don't, completely blow up their roster for draft picks, which I know still some people are hoping for, right? I would like to see, I'd be comfortable with Ime Udoka coming in, assuming all the off-the-court stuff is a non-factor. It's a non-issue. It's something that the Raptors will not have to worry about. And it seems like, given all the recent reports, it shouldn't be an issue for him coming back and being a coach in the NBA, but we don't really know the full details. And we heard guys like Matt Barnes and Kendrick Perkins saying that it was something ridiculous that he did, that he'd never get a coach. He's going to be, out of the league, shunned from the league for the future to come with what he did. So that's what those guys are saying, but I don't know. All the rumors seem to insinuate it's not something that's too bad, and he'll be able to come back and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to stay away from that there because we don't really know what's going on that front. But assuming there's no issues off the court with Ime Udoka coming in, he's definitely the lead candidate that I think a lot of Raptors fans would want. But Ime's not the only guy on this list, as Adrian Griffin, Earl Watson are there. Not heavy, still guys, not favorited by any means. A significant dip off from Ime Udoka, plus 550, plus 950 there. Then you got guys like Sam Cassell, Charles Lee, Kenny Atkinson, and Frank Vogel. Obviously, Vogel coached the Lakers, LeBron team that won a championship. Kenny Atkinson turned down the job from the Hornets last season as a lead assistant for the Warriors, head coach in the Nets. Earl Watson, Adrian Griffin, assistant coaches for this team right now. So all guys that could potentially fill in. It's hard to get a good gauge in terms of how they are as coaches, as assistants and all that sort of stuff. It's tough to make a solid decision there or evaluation, but Kenny Atkins will be cool. He did a good job with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not that interested in a guy like Frank Vogel, but let me know what you guys think about all those candidates. And Pascal Siakam was also asked on the Nick Nurse comments, essentially saying that that's a question that's above my pay grade. I have no idea what's going to happen. We focus on the season and wanting to finish strong. The whole coaching, that'll be Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster. He said that to Malika Andrews in a little video. Didn't pull up the full video, but just the quote there from the guy from Twitter. But interesting stuff from Pascal, not deflecting it, not shutting it down, just saying, hey, it's above my pay grade. I don't know what's going on. So we'll definitely keep you updated with anything in regards to that situation, because that's going to have a big impact on the team next year. But leads us into our next topic of discussion as Fred VanVleet, the coach on the floor. Been a topic of discussion. It started off with Jakob Poeltl essentially defending Fred VanVleet, calling him an unselfish player, as in recent weeks, Jakob Poeltl's touches have kind of gone down a little bit. Minutes, touches, game by game, there's some where he gets, 4, 5, 6 shots in or whatever, a game in the single digits in terms of scoring. And Jakob Poeltl's been one of the most efficient guys on this Raptors team. And as a center, you're usually relying on your point guard to facilitate, give you those passes, give you those touches. And there's been criticism thrown the way of Fred VanVleet saying, oh, he's too selfish, he's not passing the yak. And we've even discussed a little bit, at times on this podcast about, Fred VanVleet needing to hit Jakob Poeltl a little bit more. But when he does it, it looks so good. And I'm praising Fred VanVleet so much. But Jakob Poeltl discussed all this talk, all this chatter, saying that Fred VanVleet is an unselfish player, saying he gets a bad rap because he has to take some bad shots at the end of the shot clock, because him taking those bailout shots rather than sort of throwing it into the hand late in the possession to someone else, Fred VanVleet, even though it's a lower percentage and all that, it's the right play for this Raptors team. He's usually the guy taking those looks. So, it's nice to see the Raptors big man, Jakob Poeltl, supporting his point guard, Fred VanVleet. Even if he was frustrated, I'm happy he say the right things on this front. And as a lot of people know, I've been a big defender of Fred VanVleet. On these podcasts, on these videos, you guys are roasting me the entire season for not absolutely trashing on the man this entire year. But Fred VanVleet came out to defend himself when these comments were brought up with Jakob Poeltl. Essentially, had some interesting quotes on Yahoo Sports, the podcast that they have with CJ Miles. Some big quotes that are firing a lot of people up. One of them is essentially saying, hey, I'm an unselfish player. People are crazy, that are essentially saying that. He declared himself unselfish, agreed with Jakob Poeltl's comments, and came out and said, hey, if you're a fan of the game, I don't care about your opinion. I don't care what's going on. And I know that fired a lot of people up. And me as a fan that speaks on YouTube, right, does whatever, talks about these vids, I completely get where he's coming from, right? He's tuning all that stuff out. I don't think that should really deserve as much hate as he's receiving and all that, right? Like, as an NBA player, you shouldn't really be listening to everyone that's on the internet speaking what they're saying. I don't think it's cocky or anything insane like that for him to make those types of comments. But, the unselfishness, that doesn't also mean that the comments from people on the internet and stuff are immediately devaluated because Fred VanVleet doesn't listen to him, because he doesn't care about those opinions. It is what it is, right? People are getting fired up over that. But the big thing, I see a lot of people, going at him for, saying that Fred VanVleet essentially called himself a top 50 player in the entire NBA. And he also insinuated that he has himself a lot higher on that list. And sure, that might be debatable, especially with the regression of his defense this season. I personally put him top 50. I personally have him in that sort of range right there, especially what he can do on the offensive end. He's a 20-point per game scorer. He can facilitate. At his best, he is a solid defender. He's an NBA champion. He's an all-star. Sure, he's had a roller coaster of a season, but at his highest of highs, right? He's good for 30 points. He's good to hit you a few threes. He's good to facilitate to guys like Jakob Poeltl. He's good to do what's asked. He's a legitimate starting point guard in the NBA if you still think he's, not all-star or anything like that at this point. I don't know. I'll keep backing Fred VanVleet, and I'll put him in that top 50. I don't know if I'd get more generous than top 50, just given especially the defensive struggles and the things Jakob Poeltl said, right? Sometimes late in the clock, he's forced to take those shots up. He can get dribble happy at times, which doesn't necessarily reflect on selfishness. He's trying to create for others. He could improve, his ability to pass, all that sort of stuff. Fred VanVleet is not perfect. Not a great finisher at the rim. It is that, whatever. But I think Fred VanVleet has taken a lot of heat, so I wanted to come out here and back him, even if I'm not as adamant in the sport as Fred VanVleet is supporting himself. But just wanted to get that out there in the clear. Final thing we're breaking down on this video is the Celtics signed former Raptors prospect Justin Champagnie. Now, Champagnie is a guy, Champagnie Poppy. Do I still have the animation of him? I do not. But a guy that I loved for the Toronto Raptors last season, but the start of the year wasn't able to break his way into the rotation. He dealt with some injuries at the start of the season. Didn't really get the opportunity to show what he had out there on the court, and then made some unfortunate Instagram stories saying, free me, let me out, and all that, and then hasn't really been able to land onto a roster. I think he was with the Sixers for a bit, but now news has come out that Justin Champagnie has, not that one. The Boston Celtics are planning to sign NBA G League falls forward Justin Champagnie to a deal. Justin Champagnie spent parts of last season with the Raptors. He averaged 18 points and 8 rebounds for the Sioux Falls. My reading is not ready at the end of this video here. But congratulations to Justin Champagnie. Seemed like a fun guy. Had a lot of good relationships in the locker room and stuff. Unfortunate that he didn't get an opportunity to really show what he got this season. And even though it's with the Celtics, I'm wishing him the best. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.